All right, how you guys doing today? I don't know what's happening with the signals, but apparently I'm not getting a good signal. Well, we're going to start this, and I'm going to keep going. If it goes off, I'll finish it. And today we're going to go. Today's the 8th, and we're going to do electromagnetic fields, electric fields, magnetism, radio frequency, microwaves, radiation, and dirty voltage. These are things nobody's thinking about. I mean, this is happening to you all day long, and this presentation today will probably help you remove 80% of these problems. If you watch this whole video, it's going to be really easy to do some of this stuff, and it'll probably make you feel better. You'll be more healthy. Overall, you may be even less sick. Today, electrosensitivity or electromagnetic sensitivity, and there's different names for it. I'm going to say 5% of Americans actually can feel this stuff now. I know that in Sweden and Netherlands, 3% actually is designated an illness, and I believe people collect money for this. Over there, they also have rooms where you can go into these rooms, and they have Faraday cages around them, and so you're not getting any of these types of frequencies in electromagnetics. And we're going to talk about each one of them and talk about how you can minimize your exposures. And a lot of it's going to be really stupid, simple stuff. Some of the symptoms are chronic headaches, digestive disorders, sleep disturbances. A lot of people have a hard time sleeping at night, memory loss, forgetting things, depression, anxiety, pain. I mean, this stuff will hurt your immune system, and all of a sudden you get pain, and you think it's from something else. Chronic colds, and you get flus all the time because your immune system is down. Dizziness, mind fog, or brain fog, some people call it. Hello, Olga. Hello, Danette. How you guys doing today? Thanks for coming on. Basically, EMFs will cut off your body from the Earth's electromagnetic fields, and we need those to live in. And so it disrupts our whole body. It invades our cells and breaks down DNA strands and causes problems. And the biggest thing, it erodes our immune system. And you know what happens when your immune system erodes and goes down? You get sick. We're going to talk all these different things, and we're going to hit each one of these. We're going to get it from our front yards. We walk in a front yard. We got radio towers. We have high tension wires. We have radio cell towers. Okay, and we still have all those analog towers. Gee, I wonder what they're doing with those. They didn't take them down. They're using them for something. We get it from things attached to our home. Some of the newest things and the most dangerous things you could do today is put those smart meters up. We're going to talk about that. I mean, these smart meters, that you attach them to your house, and when you attach them to your house, they talk to each other. So they get a whole street to do it, and it just jumps from house to house. And the farther down you get the path, you're trying to get to a tower, what they call the cloud, right? And you get more and more and more the closer you get to the tower, and then it of course they can monitor you too with these things. They know exactly what kind of refrigerator you have. They know what time you open your refrigerator. Every appliance has a frequency type code that these smart meters pick up, so they know if you're using a Frigidaire or if you're using a Maytag, and they even know what time you eat. They know if you eat at night because the refrigerator turns on, compressor turns on, it draws power. So that's one bad thing, is they're in your house. They know exactly what you're doing. But the other problem is the frequency that they put out. And you can opt out. I know that I am one of the last people in the whole western part of Lakewood that doesn't have one, and they got to come to my house every month and read the meter. And I just told them, I said, hey, listen, if you could promise me that I'm not going to get sick from this, and I told them I have electrosensitivity, then I'll let you put it in. But they couldn't do that, and so I don't have one of these things. What if you live in an apartment or condo? You're thinking like, okay, I no worries. Wait a minute. Well, what if they got a cell tower right above you? They even hide these things. This looks like a chimney, right? There's like 6 units underneath this thing. These people are getting whacked. All right. Now we can get it from things in our homes, our appliances. We can get it from transmitters, okay? That's an infrared picture of a water meter, and there's a smart meter transmitter there. I do these inspections. I do all 6 different frequencies. And we're going to go through these momentarily here, and I'm going to tell you each one and how it affects you and how you could minimize the exposure. But I had a client that would burp every time this thing would turn on. And every 40 seconds, it would send a signal to the meter outside from her basement. It would constrict her, and she'd burp. And I actually got it all on video, but she won't let me use that burping. She thinks, she told me, don't put that on the internet, so I'm not going to do it. But one day I will. We get it from like our brand new cars. We're sitting in our cars, and there's all kind of frequencies going on, EMFs and radio signals. You get on an airplane. Oh my God, there's so much going on in an airplane. It's unbelievable. And then we live in campers. Our campers have them. And then this other picture here is me actually taking a test. Think about this. Why would you want to buy a house downstream from a nuclear power plant? I don't know if that's such a good idea, okay? So I'm testing it, and there's no radiation there, okay? But if there ever was an accident, but why would you want to buy a house under a high-tension wire? Okay, why would you want to buy a house under a radio tower? Okay, so you always got to think about where you're living, and I'm thinking maybe you're trying to get away from some of that stuff if you possibly can. Elevators. Now you go to work. Right now, this is a good one. You sit there and work, and these lights above you are putting out all kind of bad stuff. First of all, they're messing with the frequency of your brain. Second of all, they're giving off EMFs, okay, electromagnetic fields. We're going to talk about that. Now, what about these panels down here? Hey, Stan. How you doing today? These panels here, there's an office on the other side of these panels. There's somebody sitting there all day working on a computer, and they're getting whacked. They're getting whacked, okay, from these things. And now I also said we can get it from space, but I don't think so. There's some guy tried to sell me these rocks. He said they're meteorites. Well, generally meteorites are magnetized, and so I checked it for radiation and didn't have any magnetism. So I don't know what this stuff was, but it wasn't a meteorite. But I'm sure there's meteorites, that can put some stuff off. But on more of another level, electric floors will give stuff off. Okay. Now, let's talk about electric. We're going to do electromagnetic fields first, okay? And I'm going to tell you where they come from and what you can do to minimize your exposure. Some of the worst things that you could have in your house that produce magnetic fields are dimmer switches. Dimmer switches are horrible. You get next to a dimmer switch, you're getting 30, 40 milligauss. Now, if you're about 4 or 5 feet away, you're probably okay. Dimmer switches also later on, I'm going to tell you, they create dirty electricity, which is a whole nother problem that causes a whole nother illness. Now, this clock here you're looking at, everyone's got these clocks or had them. They're always next to your bed. These are some of the worst EMF machines there are. These things put out like 100, 200 milligauss if you're right next to them. So any of these old clocks, you want to pretty much move to the dresser. I'm going to say 5 to 6 feet for these things. And any of you guys sleeping with your cell phones, bad idea. Okay, especially if you're charging them. You got charging stations next to your bed, bad idea. You need to move that, I'm going to say 3 to 5 feet, depending on what kind of charger you're using. So you should have nothing on your nightstand next to your bed while you sleep. Okay, at least 4 to 5 feet distance. Now, the EPA does label. Hey, Janet. Hey, Paris. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for coming on. The EPA has labeled magnetic fields as a carcinogen, class 3. I don't know if you guys ever read the disclosures with your cell phones. You can't read them because you need a magnifying glass, but it says all this stuff in there. I mean, they're not like hiding it from us. They're not going to like put it on TV, but it's all in there. They know it's a problem. Now, air conditioning systems, if you're in a high-rise building and you got towers up on the rooftop, you got rooftop units up there and air conditioning units up on the roof. Well, you're going to get EMFs. They're going to come down. Hey, Paris, how you doing? How's everybody doing today? Thanks for coming on. Refrigerators, electric ovens. When you're cooking, don't stand next to your electric oven. Just get about 4 feet away from it. Underfloor heating, that's kind of a problem. You might have to test that to see if you're getting it. Sometimes, depending on the spacing of the elements and the type of heating system you have, will depend on the milligauss that you're going to get from the floors. Electric beds, how about electric blankets? I mean, now I know that, hey, Ted, how you doing? Electric blankets, the old ones, man, you were cooking yourself in those. And, think about back then when all those kids were getting leukemia back when we were growing up. We all had those electric blankets. Now the new electric blankets are designed not to put off as many EMFs, but any of those old electric blankets, don't even use those. Get rid of them. Don't sell them in garage sales. Throw them out. We talked about the bedside clocks, chargers, power supply, voltage converters, stereo entertainment systems, fans. Generally, fans aren't bad because they're like 4 or 5 feet away. But if you're going to sit underneath the fan, you might want to check it out. You can buy, there's some gauges you could buy that aren't very expensive. I might have one on here. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at my slides. They just met, the number you're looking for is 2 milligauss. Now, that's not a lot, but in Sweden, you can't build a school and have children or anything anywhere near anything that's over 2 milligauss. And 2 milligauss isn't a large number. They do sell gauges that give you 2 milligauss. You can look for them. I think they're like $30-$40. CFL, compact fluorescent light bulbs. We're going to hit those. I'm going to tell you all about those and the LEDs, how those things aren't as good as you think they are. Circuits, we talked about dimmer switches, electric toothbrushes, razors, pretty much anything that has a motor on it. You want to try to minimize the exposure. If you must use it on your body, then, don't do it for a long period of time. You want to cut that as much as you can, and you want to keep things away from you. So some symptoms, I think we talked about, now these are EMF symptoms. We talked about the nervous system, fatigue and stress, sleep disturbances, skin too, facial prickling, burning sensations. You can get this from electromagnetic fields. Body symptoms like pains, we talked about that. And burning of the eyes, foggy thinking. And I'm going to reiterate some of this stuff as we go through because certain people are coming in the middle of this. And then, there's all types of problems you can have because it hurts your immune system. Leukemia. In children, breast cancer clusters have been linked to high exposures to EMF. Okay, now electric panels. Generally, your electric panel, you're not going to be sleeping next to your electrical panel because it's in the basement. But you might not want to have your bed above this area. You might want to move your bed because above this area is wires coming down. Another one is transformers, doorbell transformers, and furnace transformers. If those are on the ceiling in your basement, you don't want to have a chair on the upper floor because you're going to be getting hit with 20, 30 milligauss, depending on what type of transformer you have. And then, of course, another thing is with the dimmer switches. If you look at that one picture down here, you see that dimmer switch. There's 100 and hey Charlotte, how you doing? 145 degrees. A lot of times people have dimmer switches. They got way too many lights, on their chandeliers, and they're just cooking. And they got the wrong rated dimmer switch, so they can actually cause a fire with those things. Not to mention, this whole entire house has got major harmonics, and that's called dirty electricity, a whole nother issue, which I'm going to tell you some crazy stuff about that in a few minutes. Vacuum cleaners, hurry up, do it fast, do it quick, don't sit there vacuum for 2 hours. You're going to be getting it. Basically, motors are your number one EMF, okay? So you want to stay away from them or at least minimize your exposure. Let's talk a little bit about cancer in children. I mean, leukemia was big. In 1975, 13 out of 100,000 had it. In 2005, it went up to 17. 2017, 35 get it. Let's think about this. The cancer rates are going up now, but they don't. It's really hard to find these numbers. But they do tell you is that the survival rate is going up. So they don't like to tell you how many more people are getting it. They want to tell you more people are surviving from it because that's kind of like TV, right? They're not going to tell you that more because everyone's going to start questioning, well, why are more people getting it and there's less kids, So 40,000 kids do get treated for different types of cancer. This is just leukemia. And I brought this one up because I actually had two of my friends back. One was 13 years old and died of leukemia. I used to play saxophone with him. And I played soccer with another guy, and he died from leukemia. And a lot of leukemia isn't like hereditary, okay? So the risk is up higher. Brain tumors are up higher. And one of the worst things you could use is a blow dryer. I mean, blow dryers put out a lot. Now, back in the 70s, we all had long hair. I don't know, maybe we got leukemia more from that. Somebody did do a study linking blow dryers to leukemia, childhood leukemia, because the children, their brains are, the skull is thinner. It doesn't protect them as much from the EMFs, and they just get a lot more. So I would say, the kids today, they're shaving their heads. Hooray, good idea. And not using blow dryers. I try to tell my kids not to use them, and they use them. And pretty much anyone with long hair is going to use a blow dryer. Now, this is huge. This is huge. Today, the way we wire up our electrical system, and most of our homes, we have what's called the ground wire. Do you see that little ground wire right here? The problem with this ground wire is that in the main panel, it's generally connected to the ground and to the neutral. And so it's dumping all the bad stuff down this ground wire. This ground wire can put up 200, 300, 400, 500 milligauss. And if you look at the room in this picture here, that's a bed. And this person wasn't feeling good for some reason. And that's why I came to do this house. But the ground wire ran right underneath this bed. And she was getting like 50 to 60 milligauss from the ground wire. So they basically moved the ground wire. So one thing is, you don't want your ground wire anywhere near you. That's when you're hitting that kind of electromagnetics, you got to be, I'm going to say, 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet from these things. Okay, now this is pretty crazy, and I know some of you guys don't want to hear this, but a lot of telephone poles are grounded, and that ground wire right underneath that telephone pole is dirty voltage. And you're electrifying that ground. So when you walk your little doggy in the morning, you are zapping him every time he walks by one of those telephone poles, even on the concrete. And so, I'll talk a little bit about walking around in barefoot towards the end. But if you're going to walk around in barefoot to remove the electricity from your body, then you don't want to be walking around anywhere near a ground rod, especially ground rods from electrical panels and from other services. So these are huge. You want to stay away from them. Here's another. This one's huge too. Now this one most people don't think about. You got power coming to your house. I don't care if it's a smart meter. That's a regular analog meter there. Okay, and it's not that much outside, but as it goes through that wall and down to the basement, if you put your bed on that wall, you're getting whacked. Generally, every house is different. I'm not going to say what number, but you're getting whacked. You need to move your bed away from that wall. You can't be behind the electric meter because you're going to be sleeping in an electromagnetic field. Sometimes they're not that high, but you'd have to test. But generally, what we're trying to do today is tell you how to do these things without spending a ton of money or hiring people like me, to do your whole house. Just look, Marco said, hey, I don't want to be behind a meter. Let's move the bed over to this side. So a lot of simple things can be done, all right? Now, this one no one ever thinks about. And you go to these hotels, and you're all happy, and you're all comfortable sleeping, and guess what's behind you? The bed, right? Guess what's on the other side of the bed? Probably the other room's television set. The smart TV, and that's got all the Wi-Fi stuff hooked up to it. So you're getting whacked just sitting in your hotel. So, if you look in your hotel room and you see where your TV's at and where your bed's at, you get an idea. What you should do is, if you find out that you're looking at TV where your head's at on your bed, just projecting the room behind you, just move the pillow to the feet part. I always sleep on the other side, the other way. This way, my head is in the middle of the room. And if I'm in the middle of the room, I'm not getting any EMFs. I'm not too worried about what's going on in the walls. But then again, I'm not going to get a hotel that has a cell tower above it. So you always got to be conscious of these things, because you're going to spend 8 hours sleeping and you're going to be exposed to these things. So, and we're going to move on to a different one here, but like a blender. If you're going to run the blender, 3 feet is good for a blender. Turn it on, walk 3 feet, you'll be fine. Dryer, washer's not as bad, 1 to 4 feet. Coffee makers at hardly anything. Don't worry about those. Computers, you don't want to be right up on a computer, 2 to 5 feet. Fluorescent lamps, they tell you here 1 to 5 feet, and it's going to be closer to 5 feet. Hair dryers, they're telling you to stay 1 foot away from a hairdryer. Well, how are you going to dry your hair, right? Well, maybe we don't use one. Microwaves, oh, we're going to get into that. That's insane. I'll talk about how far you got to stay away from microwave while it's running. Televisions, the televisions actually don't put out as much electromagnetic fields as they do RF, which we're going to talk about, and that's a whole nother type of frequency. Vacuum cleaners, and of course, in an airplane. So now we're going to talk about electric fields. Now, electromagnetic fields basically are where you've got things plugged in and things are running. Okay, electric fields, on the other hand, is just nothing's running, and it just electric field produces electric field. And some of our biggest causes of electric fields are long extension cords that are plugged in, that have power in them. Those are putting out electric fields, and electromagnetic fields. Now, one of the other problems is the way we wire our sub panels. No one ever checks the sub panel. You got the main panel and you got a sub panel. If you're a sub panel and you're sharing the neutral and ground, you kind of have to know what you're looking for this. But if your neutrals and grounds are sharing the same bar, guess what? You've got electric fields in your walls. All those wires you have in your walls are creating electric fields. And also the older homes with the knob and tube, depending on exactly how far the hot neutrals are in your walls, will create a certain magnetic field too. And then they share the neutrals in the older homes. So you could be creating major electric fields and electromagnetic fields from old wiring or improper wiring. Now that's a little bit harder to find. And that you may have to do a little bit more in-depth diagnosis for these. Now, these are easy. You can find out if you've got an open ground, then you've got, that's going to create problems, okay, with fields. And if you've got a reverse polarity, that's going to cause problems. So you can buy these things for $5 and have your electrician fix them. And then we've had a whole bunch of houses with low voltage wiring back in the 60s and 70s. That's a problem because of the relay switches and the way they're wired. They produce electric fields. I mean, you can walk down a hallway that's electrified. I mean, there's high electric fields just going down a hallway with a low voltage system, if the way they wire it. And then people have their own little contraption, like it looks like a fishing box with some kind of resistor in it, and that was putting out some fields. So basically anything with electricity, motors, are going to put these electric fields out. Hey, Ahmed, how you doing? A radio frequency. Now, we're going to move up. We're going to go to the next level here. Radio frequency, microwaves, radio waves. Basically, naturally we get exposed to them just from outer space. In the sun, we're getting some, okay? Not a lot, but we're getting them. Lightning strikes will produce them. And then, of course, I said we need some of this stuff from the Earth because that's how our bodies are designed for this Earth, and we need some of that. But the man-made ones, on the other hand, we don't need. Like radio towers, television signals. You want to try to stay away from those if you can. Some of the big ones are cordless phones, which we don't have anymore, but we all grew up with those cordless phones. Those are huge, huge. You don't want anything that's going to transmit signals, or at least turn them off if you can. Cell phones, satellite phones, two-way radios, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. I mean, Wi-Fi, we all got Wi-Fi. You know what? You need to turn that off at night. And Wi-Fi is a real problem. Some people won't even have Wi-Fi. They'll just hardwire it just to stop this from happening. People are electrically sensitized, cannot have Wi-Fi because it drives them crazy. Cooking food, microwaves, and then of course there's all kind of medical procedures. That we're not even going to go there with this one. And there's jobs and occupations like welders. And then when those body scanners, those aren't like safe. And so you are exposed to a lot of this stuff. You might want to opt out if you're traveling. If you're traveling a lot and you're doing airplanes all the time, man, you better be opting out to some of this stuff. You're allowed to opt out. They'll just do a body search. You know what I mean? You don't need to go through that thing, okay? And you're getting enough just walking through the airport. Some of the health effects that you get from electric fields, electromagnetic fields, and radio frequencies, it affects the electrical communication in our bodies, like the brainwaves, our ability for our nervous neurons to fire and communicate. So kind of like it puts us into we're imbalanced. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I know what this stuff means. It's not good. Brain fog, we talked about that. We talked about altered cell growth, the DNA and mutations, fibromyalgia, okay, chronic fatigue, cancer, so all these things come from these types of frequencies and electromagnetic waves and frequencies. Basically, if you're going to have cordless phones, I would say don't use the cordless phones. And I don't even know who actually has phones in their homes again. I'm thinking, if you're going to have cell phones, maybe you do more texting, okay? Microwave ovens, don't be standing in the same room. Microwaves generally, when I do test them, I have a microwave tester. You almost have to be out of the room, okay, or hiding behind the refrigerator. I hide behind my refrigerator when I use my microwave because it puts out like 500 milligauss. Games, PlayStations. Now this one's crazy. You want to take care of your baby, so you got baby monitors all around this kid. No clue, but these things are putting out a ton of stuff. You want to take that baby monitor and move it. People have those cameras, and they have all types of those sound machines. I don't know if you've ever seen these things, but people buy these things that make this sound, like some soothing sound. Those things they do put out some EMFs, and they put out a frequency. Smart electric meters, we talked about smart meters, gas meters, and of course the smart house. Everything's wireless. Those homes have a lot. Basically, we talked a little bit about the smart meter. I recommend opting out of it. This is me testing a router. Now, here's the thing with the routers. Routers are horrible, and most of us have them next to the computer. Bad idea. What you want to do, hey, Bill, how you doing? Citizens Band, Henry, how you guys all doing? Thanks for coming on. The routers, you got to move them to the other end as far away as you can to the basement. And you're still gonna get frequency from those, but not as much. It'll be cut like in half. And if you can, the ultimate thing to do is to turn them off at night when you go. This way, at least at night, you're not getting hit with this stuff. And what would be even better is if you had a switch that turned off all the power in your bedroom. And if you could turn off all the power in your bedroom, I'm going to talk about what the wiring does to you and what your bed springs can be doing to you as well. So you want to move that router, turn it off, or not don't go wireless. Just connect it. Now, I don't know why I would buy a house behind a radio tower, or I would buy a house behind a cell tower. I test these things, and they put out a lot of bad stuff, and you're going to be exposed to this. Your kids are going to play in the backyard. I don't know about that. And another one is now that looks like a Christmas tree. They're hiding these things now. That is a cell tower, and it's underneath the daycare. Okay, that cell tower was putting out a lot. In Sweden, you couldn't get away with that. They would take that down. Matter of fact, in India, they're starting to take them down, okay, because they're realizing they're causing problems. So cell towers, they do a lot of studies, and they're doing studies, and you can look this stuff up. I'm not going to give you the studies. If you want, look it up. But maybe what we do is we text more, and people are texting more, so that's pretty good. I know that the old phones, I've been using cell phones for, I don't know, a long time. And I remember the first cell phones, my head used to get hot, and it would stay hot. And I knew something was wrong. I even went and got a brain scan once. I thought I had a tumor from those things. And so maybe, now, as far as a cell phone, I don't have it on me. I leave it in my car, or I leave it on my desk. I try not to put it in my pocket. Especially men shouldn't carry them in their pants pockets. It's a problem. Women, same thing. You don't want to put them in your bra. You definitely, if you're pregnant, you don't want to be carrying a cell phone. Okay, and children shouldn't have cell phones, and that's a problem. I see these little 6-year-olds running around with cell phones, and 7-year-olds. Not a good thing. Their heads aren't that they're thin skulls. Maybe that's why our leukemia rate has gone up and our cancer rates are going up. Okay. Now this one's kind of crazy. I have to throw some crazy stuff in there, right? I'm Marko, of course. Now, this is a new one that I don't know anything about, but I know they exist. They're all over the place. These are called high-frequency active auroral research programs. This is actually one site that everybody knows about in Alaska. They got 300 of these towers. And you know what they do? They shoot 1 billion volts up into the atmosphere. They heat the atmosphere. They're called ionic heaters. And they push the atmosphere up, and they move the jet stream. In other words, weather modification. But what they tell you they use it for is they use it for finding, counting, talking to ships and things like that. But you know what else they do? They will go in the sky and they'll shoot aluminum oxide at 30,000 feet. In other words, some of you guys some people call it chemtrailing, okay? But I'm going to call it geoengineering, or I'm going to call it solar reflectors, or I'm going to call it atmospheric heaters, okay? I'm going to call everything but that other word, because when you say that word, they think you're crazy. So we won't say that word. But what they do is they'll shoot this thing into that cloud they create, and it bounces back down. How do you think they found all that gas, that natural gas? Because it bounces back down to whole areas. They could find fault lines. And think about all the people that are getting hit with this all day long. They're using these things. They're all over the country, all over the world. I go on Google sometimes. I got nothing to do at night and spend 8 hours looking for these things. I find them at full mountains in China. I find them underwater down near Antarctica. You can see these things underwater. Like, what is this? What is this? And a lot of times they're even hidden by Google clouds. So this is a whole nother avenue of poison that we're getting that we didn't even know about. Okay, enough crazy. All right, microwaves. Basically, the microwaves, that's the microwave tester I'm using there. And old microwaves can leak microwaves. Now, I use a couple different gauges. On a microwave oven, if you got leaking microwaves, that's a real problem, okay? Because that's a whole other animal, and you don't want to be exposed to microwaves. And you'll get microwaves going through airports. A lot of microwaves when you're in those areas where you're going through scanners where they're checking your body. That lot of microwaves. But this also puts out huge electromagnetic fields, and I like testing these just for shits and giggles. And some of them put out like 500. I show people where they have to stand, and most of the time when that thing's running, you can't even be in the kitchen. You got to be out of the kitchen on the other side of the wall, because that thing's putting out electromagnetic fields. And generally, like I said, maybe not microwaves. Now, some of these leak, and you'll get microwaves really close, like near the door. So you don't want to be cooking while the microwave is in front of your face heating. A lot of us will like to put stuff in the microwave, because we're trying to time our dinners. And so we want to hit that real quick, and that way everything's at a good temperature. Well, you might have to change the way you cook, all right? By the way, microwaves kill everything. So basically, that might be a whole nother video for me, but any food that comes out of microwave is pretty much dead. Everything's gone. You're not going to get any nutrition out of anything that's been cooked with a microwave, including stuff you buy that's been microwaved. And that's a whole nother story. Now, radiation. Now, this is crazy. We have radioactive substances in our homes. Now, we know about radon, right? Radon is cesium, and that's radioactive. So the only way you're going to test for radon is you got to do a radon test. Okay, so every house should be tested for radon. And last week I did a presentation last Sunday on radon. So if you want to learn a little bit about radon, it's on my Facebook, and it's also on my YouTube channel, Clevelandmarko. And you could learn a little bit about radon and how you can minimize exposure from that. The other radiation could simply be the products in your home. And I found out that green glass, mostly green glass, is radioactive, especially during a certain era. They used uranium, okay, to make it this color. And the way you know if you don't have like a $900 gauge like you see I'm using right here, I have one of these, you can basically just get a black light, and it'll effloresce. And if it effloresces, it's uranium, okay? And those things, like this one here, that's a lot. I mean, if I put this thing on my chest for like 8 hours, it could be like a little chest X-ray, So, but here's the good thing about this stuff: it's if the distance. If you go move this 5 feet away, you're not getting anything. So any radioactive glass, I want to say if you don't have a gauge, you can't test it, you don't have a black light, anything green, okay, especially like translucent type green, I might put that away, like up high in the cabinet where no one's sitting. But you don't want to put this next to your bed, because now not only you're getting electromagnetic fields, and not only you're going to be getting stuff from your mat. We're going to talk about mattress springs in a minute. You're going to be getting radiation. So move this stuff. Get it, move it away. All right. That's what it looks like when you put a black light on it. It's pretty cool. And of course, I buy this stuff because I'm an idiot. I like to collect dangerous things, and so I got downtown. I got a bunch of this stuff, and I like to buy the really radioactive stuff. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have it. Okay, now we're going to get crazy. All right, magnetism. Magnetism. This is. A lot of people don't think it's a problem. And you know what? I don't know if it's a problem, but I'm going to tell you a few things. The way they make mattress springs and the coilers that they use, and the way they put them together, they're magnetic, okay? And so you're sleeping on you're sleeping on kind of a magnet. But here's the other issue. It's also, not only is it a magnet, but it's an antenna, okay? It's like I think my slides are a little bit out of order. The bed springs, okay, they are approximately half a wavelength of an FM TV transmission. So basically, you're sleeping on an antenna, okay? Not only is it an antenna, but it's magnetized, and so along with the frequency, you are they're inductor coils. Correct, Ted. Thanks for coming in. Ted is an expert on electromagnetics, and he actually sells products, cloths and things like that you can cover certain electric fields producing mechanisms, and he does have products online for that that you can get off of, I believe, eBay. These things here, when you sleep on them, okay, now they're going to use centimeters, 75 centimeters, okay, and that's where, if you know anything about engineering, it's called the right-hand rule. And so when you sleep on your left side, and about 85% of Americans sleep, on the right side. When you sleep on your right side of your body, and you take the right-hand rule, and you take the 75 centimeters from the center of your spring, guess where it ends up going through? That's right, your heart and your left breast. And basically, left breast cancer is very high in America and virtually non-existent in Japan. And guess what Japan doesn't have? They don't have springs in their beds, and they don't have the same frequency we have, TV frequencies. Okay, so I'm not saying that it's linking it to left breast cancer, and left breast cancer is a big problem in America. 1 in 3 women, I think, will develop breast cancer. As far as problems with your heart and heart attacks, well, that's there too, right? And that's probably one of the number 1 killers. So I'm not saying throw out your mattresses, but the way you could test these mattresses, though, to see if they're not all magnetized, is if you don't have a gauge like I use, you can buy one of these compasses, and one of these things. These are probably, I don't know, $50-$60, and you don't need a gauge. This will tell you if your bed springs are magnetized. So if they are magnetized, you might want to build a Faraday cage. You might want to study on it, or maybe get rid of the mattress springs and go to a springless. Maybe they do have mattresses with plastic type springs. So beds in America can be causing problems because they have springs in them. All right. And now let's hit dirty voltage. Dirty voltage is basically caused in your home when you plug things into the walls. Okay. Dirty voltage, house wiring, when you plug things in a wall, it creates harmonics, okay? I think I talked about earlier in Sweden, 30% of the population is affected by this stuff. And basically, they are concluding that it's caused by dirty electricity and all the things we're talking about. They actually see this as an illness. Okay, America does not see this as an illness. Dirty voltage causes headaches. Again, sleeping disorders, hard time sleeping at night, pain, same kind of thing. Hey Jim, how you doing today? Ringing in the ears. Okay, that's horrible. I've got that. Chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay, and Lou Gehrig's disease. All right. So some of the things that cause harmonics in your home are things you plug in. Here's one of your worst things you could have in your house that causes harmonics, and that would be the compact fluorescent lights. You remember they got rid of all the incandescent lights? Those were good. Those don't produce hardly any harmonics. These things completely destroy your house. Your whole house becomes this antenna emitting source. So people that have these all over the house are getting poisoned in their home. Get rid of these things. Not only that, they're full of mercury. You break one of those, you need a hazmat team, okay? We're not even going to get into that. That's a whole nother set of issues. LEDs. A lot of the LEDs produce dirty voltage, produce harmonics in the line. I know that you save money with them, but, you're going to save money and maybe it's going to make you sick. I don't know. I switched back to incandescent light bulbs, okay? I'm starting to turn off my wireless router at night. That's another one you want to do. Okay, I don't have a smart meter. Okay, so there are a lot of things we could do. And another thing you don't want to do is you don't have nothing plugged in the walls. If you're not using something, don't leave it plugged in the wall. Okay, just unplug it. If you've got things that are on motors and house appliances and disposals and things like that, just kind of step away from them. You don't have to stand in front of them. So incandescent lights are good. Of course, this is my favorite light bulb, but of course the wiring is bad on this one. You probably get electrocuted if you touch this one. But these are the kind of light bulbs that don't produce high harmonics. So let's talk about the big picture, all right? Because I'm going to try to put this together a little bit. The big picture, basically in America, and Ted knows about the Western Society. He wrote a book on it. You guys could check out his book. We have a very high acidic diet. So let's think about that. What does that mean? Well, we eat sugars and grains and fish, meat. Okay, we eat sodas, beverages, food supplements, and that is acidic. So let's think about this. We become acidic. Our bodies is acidic from just the food we eat. So then what happens is our body naturally gets voltage. But now we live in a house that's got you're living in a house and you've got these compact fluorescent lights, you've got smart TVs, you've got routers going, you got all kind of stuff going on, and now you're inducing electricity into your body. So as you walk down that hall that has that neutral and ground sub-panel improper wiring and then the reverse polarities, your body's grabbing that and it's picking it up and it's increasing the voltage in your body. It's also killing your immune system. So now you got the rubber shoes on. So now you're walking and you're picking up electricity and you're eating acid food. Guess what you are? You're a walking battery. That's right, you're a battery and you're charging your battery. Our bodies aren't designed to be charged. We're not batteries. And so what are you going to do? Well, we got to do a few things. We got to, like Ted's saying, the body operates as a capacitor. Basically, a capacitor. And you don't want that. You don't want that. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a lot of things. We're going to minimize, remove, and shield. That's what we talked about today. We're going to minimize our exposures. We're not going to live under cell towers. We're not going to stand in rooms while we're cooking, our microwaves running. We're not going to lean against our dishwasher and have a drink and talk to somebody for half an hour. We're going to shut off our router at night. And if we can, we're going to shut the power off to our room. Maybe we'll have an electrician wire up the room so there's no power. That's great. So then we'll get nothing, right? Maybe we will move our bed because our bed happens to be in the wrong place. We'll get rid of the dimmer switches. We're going to move our reading tables and our reading chairs because we've got fluorescent lights below us. Get rid of the fluorescent lights with the ballast. Those things are no good. Get rid of the mercury lights. Maybe you got mercury lights like I do in my grow tent where I'm growing my vegetables. I didn't realize it, but I cook myself when I go in there, and it create major harmonics which travel throughout the whole house. Maybe that's a bad idea. So we want to remove, minimize, and shield. We want an alkaline, maybe a little bit of alkaline diet. Maybe, we don't eat the meat as much anymore. Maybe we throw in some spinach and kale, and you guys can look that whole thing up. I'm not going to do the alkaline diet thing here, but that'll help us out because we don't want to be acidic. And then maybe we got to ground ourselves. So you know what? Take off your shoes, man. Go in the backyard and walk around. Walk barefoot every day somewhere where don't walk barefoot near ground wires. Remember we told you about the ground wires from the telephone poles in your house? Ground wire, man, that's electrifying the ground. That's dirty voltage galore, man. So, walk through the woods. Maybe when you go, walk your dog, take your shoes off. You're in the park, walk barefoot, and that will decharge yourself, right? You want to kill that battery. You don't want to be a walking battery, okay? And you could ground your bed too. There are products you can buy. I grounded my bed and I put a Faraday cage up. Hey, Bill. Hey, Stan. So I'm glad you guys came on today. That was the big picture. We are a walking battery because we eat acidic food. Our diet in the Western society, USA, is purely acidic, and then we have more gizmos that poison us through electromagnetics, through electric fields, through radio frequency, through microwaves, through radiation, okay, and dirty voltage and harmonics that create dirty voltage in our walls. Our whole houses are these antennas now that are just shooting juice into our body, which is not good. And then we put rubber shoes on. Very bad. Why do you think the Indians walk around barefoot out in the wilderness? Because they know about this stuff. And so that was tonight's Sunday 8:30 show. I will probably put this on my Facebook again tomorrow. If you missed it, you can watch it again. And I will probably put this also onto my YouTube channel. I am on YouTube, Clevelandmarko, Clevelandmarko with a K. And I think I have like 350 videos. You're more than welcome to sign up. You don't have to sign up. Just, you could like some of the videos if you like them. So thanks for watching tonight. Good night. And have a good week. And try to do some of the stuff we talked about. It'll make you healthier.